Hi, this is Mary Ann Hughes, and I'm so excited to bring you an interview with Allison Schaberg, one of the premium partners with Divorce for Special Needs Children.com. And I'm going to let her introduce herself and share how she helps families before, during, and after divorce when they have a child with a disability and trying to plan for the future.
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. It's a pleasure to be with you. Always great to work with you. I'm Allison Schaberg, Consolidated Planning Group. We are a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors and members of the Special Needs Planning Academy. So families just like yours come to us because they want to plan for the future of their loved one with a disability to make sure that the individual's needs are met while we're alive as parents of special needs, but also well after we're gone. And so we help people put together plans. So such things as future care cost estimates. A lot of people come to us and they want to know how much money do we need to fund a special needs trust. In the special needs community, we hear all the time that we need a special needs trust, and that's all well and good, and it's true. But how much money do we need to fund that trust? What is that dollar amount that it looks like the future care cost for our loved one? And so we help people make those calculations with their individual desires in mind. So some people come to us and they know that in the future their loved one is going to live in a residential living situation or place, and so we can estimate those costs out into the future as well. Another reason people come to us is because we are nationally certified as Social Security advisors, and we have the only software out there that takes into consideration disabled adult children under a parent's record. And that's going to tell us exactly when and how to pull the trigger on Social Security benefits to maximize benefits for the whole family. And this matters in divorce as well, because it's the parents, so the mother and the father, their benefits. When we have a child whose disability started prior to age 22, they have the ability to be covered under a parent's record, and those claiming strategies are very, very important. So what I would say is, Marianne, you and I both know that, a divorce is a slippery slope. It's a difficult time emotionally, financially. There's so many moving parts and fear, honestly, fear of not having enough. There's so many things that are running through people's heads at that time. And what I would say is that we bring some clarity to that whole picture, that it may not be as scary as it looks or it feels, I would say. And part of it is having a plan and working your plan, as opposed to kind of going into these things blindly.
For sure. Yeah, there's so many emotions around divorce, and one of the biggest worries, like you said, is how to plan for the future and setting up trust and so on. So a lot of people ask me questions about that. Can you share about trust, whether they're funded now or in the future, and how you recommend people start thinking about that?
As far as trust being funded now or in the future, I would say that answer largely depends on the situation. Now, we have families that come to us that maybe are very affluent, and there's plenty of money to fund the trust now, and there's no worries, okay? And that's okay. So we see that, or we see where grandparents may have passed away and the grandparents funded the trust, and that's okay too. But what we see most often, and what my feeling is I am a fan of keeping the parents' assets nimble in the 25 to 35 years that they could be spending in retirement. That's a long time. And they are the funder of everything, the funder of their retirement, the funder of the bills, the funder of the disabled child or adult child's bills. So having assets nimble and maybe not locked up in an irrevocable trust, I'm a fan of. Also, what I see is a lot of families keep those assets nimble during their lifetime, and they have plans to fund a special needs trust with life insurance. It could be a permanent life insurance, it could be term, it could be a survivorship policy, or also in our industry they kind of throw around the term second to die policy. So that might be in a divorce situation where both mom and dad are covered in a second to die policy. And when the last person passes away, then that policy funds the special needs trust. So there's all kinds of creative ways to do it because honestly, people come to us and they look at these future care cost estimates, and sometimes that feels overwhelming of how much money a person might need to fund a special needs trust. But when we look at all of the tools and resources available to fund that, so it might not be in your wheelhouse and what you're thinking about, but there's a lot of creative ways to fund a special needs trust. And part of it is just getting started and planning. But Marianne, I want to talk to you about another thing that comes up sometimes in divorce as well, is when it's coming to funding a special needs trust, a lot of families have more than one child, right? And so the question comes up is, should I have an equal distribution or an unequal distribution? Should I give more to the individual with a disability? After all, the other kids went to college and they're thriving and they're making money, and they'll make more money than this individual ever will. So sometimes we see unequal distributions, and that's totally okay. Sometimes there is enough money to go around that we can have enough money to fund the special needs trust and provide equal distributions to the other siblings. And what I would say there is not a right or wrong answer. Some people are really stuck on being fair. If there's 4 kids, we're going to divide it 4 ways. It doesn't matter that the trust needs this much money or that kind of thing. And I would say, again, if there's plenty of money that everybody can have an equal distribution, that's fantastic. But if the money indicates that there needs to be an unequal distribution, I would lean towards funding the trust, because after all, that's what we lose sleep at night at, of how will my child's care be funded and what's going to happen to them after I'm gone. So I would want to make sure first that there is plenty of money in the special needs trust.
Right, those are great points. And some people are not clear about what those considerations are in terms of long-term planning. What are the kind of expenses that you talk about that they start thinking about and planning for?
Yes, I think it's really important. And one thing that I want to mention, I think that this is important consideration as well, is I'm not a huge fan of the other siblings, the neurotypical siblings, being the future caregiver. They have hopes and dreams just like we did when we were young and starting out, and having an obligatory requirement of being a future caregiver for a sibling that has special needs may be more than what they can handle. It might not, it may be what they want to handle, but it might be more than what their spouse might be willing to handle, and things like that. So thinking about what I like to think about, and this is true whether you're married or going through divorce or whatever, we want to think about being of sound mind and body now, okay? We may not always be that way. We may not always be able to provide the caregiving services that we once did. We may not physically be able, emotionally able, financially able. So making those plans now, I think, is going to be very, very important in the future as it relates to planning for your loved one. And the other thing that I would say is what we've learned from our other families is that a lot of people that have disabilities don't always gel well with change. Like, change is tough, right? It's very, very tough. And so what we've seen is when families have had kids with disabilities that have lived with them forever, like some people say, well, they'll live with me until I die, all their life. So maybe 50, 60 years they've lived with the parents, and then the parents pass away. And then now all of a sudden they're finding themselves living in a residential living facility that they hate, that they're very uncomfortable. They're grieving the loss of their parents. So what I would say is think about dipping your toe into stuff like that along the way. There's a lot of summer camps for people with disabilities. There's a lot of day programs and transition programs and other things like that. And having our loved ones in the community interacting is going to be really important, because I think what happens is there's this cliff, like once they graduate high school or they finish their transition program, and they had all this interaction and all these friends and community and all of this stuff, and then if we're not careful, it's like it's just over. It ends and they're sitting at home. And so if you take a person that's been doing that for 40, 50, 60 years and then they lose their parents, it's very traumatic. So we do like to bring that up to people as just a thought, as you're planning, this is the long term, it's not short term.
Right, these are great points, and definitely have honest conversations with your family members and start doing those changes gradually and having an open mind as to what's out there in different ways that that child and adult can be taken care of in the future if we're not able to do it ourselves. Definitely.
And one thing that I have found too is that educating yourself, like you said, and like touring, like looking at places and transition programs and day programs and camps and touring those places and looking at them. Is this a fit? Is this not a fit? Some of these places have 5+ year waiting list. So a lot of them require a tour prior to getting your name on the waiting list. And if you have your name on the waiting list and it comes up, you have the right to say no. But if you need to say yes and you're not on the list, then you've got issues. So, like, kind of thinking about some of those things along the way. And here's another thing that I would say: we have families who have loved ones all over everywhere, all in living facilities all over the state of Texas. Consolidated Planning Group serves all over the United States. And I think a lot of families, think about putting somebody somewhere that like they're sticking them somewhere. What I have found is the residents at these locations are happy. They have community. A lot of them have jobs. They have friends. So much so that when they come home on the weekends, they're asking when do they get to go back, or when the family comes to visit, they ask, when are you leaving? So there's a lot of cool things, but part of it is just getting out there and seeing it and feeling it and trying those things out. And I think that that matters long term on your overall financial picture of what you're going to be looking at. Are you looking at paying for a residential living facility? Are you looking at somebody living in your home and maybe having a caregiver for years? Are you getting a Medicaid waiver that's going to offset some of those costs or not? We're looking at all of that, but clearly residential living, when it comes to a future care cost estimate, when we're looking at this for divorce purposes, that's a big expense. And so having a better understanding of what our feelings are on that, granted, those feelings can change, but looking out into the future of what it might look like. What if you're 75 years old or 85 years old? What about then? So it's not exactly what you might feel like when you're 45 or 50 years old.
Right, it's a great conversation because sometimes people go into divorce not realizing it's a combination of just taking care of the divorce and dividing the assets, but also planning for the future, a life care plan for a child with a disability as part of the whole process, and things we need to think about as we make decisions and how we plan for a divorce and go forward.
The truth is, Marianne, the ifs in life happen. Like we hear of things happening to other people, or people becoming disabled, or people going on hospice, or having a diagnosis that you could have never anticipated. But those things do happen. It happens to parents. And so we have to plan for things like that for our own care. What if we need care ourselves? In addition to providing care for our loved one with a disability. And a lot of families have more than one child, with a disability. So it's not just one. We're looking at a much bigger picture here.
Yeah, yeah. And so you mentioned you work with people all over the country. How can people get in touch with you and find out more about how you can help them and how to work with you?
Sure. So, Consolidated Planning Group clearly has a website, and we also have a Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel. We have over 500 webinars on our YouTube channel on planning for special needs, and that came from my heart. I am a parent to kids with disabilities, and I eat, sleep, and breathe this. And when my kids were transitioning into adulthood, Marianne, I felt frustrated on why is everything so hard? Why is everything we do as a parent of special needs difficult? And so that YouTube channel was born, and it is designed to empower parents and give them tools and resources for free to be successful on their planning journey. Consolidated Planning Group, we always offer free personalized consultations, and you can contact us through our website, through YouTube, through Facebook, and you can schedule your free personalized consultation. You can also email us at contact@cpgcares.net. That's contact@cpgcares.net, and we can be reached at 281 690 1177. That's 281 690 1177.
Oh, wonderful. I know your website and your YouTube channel definitely is full of so much information, so many experts sharing things from all the way from letters of intent to guardianship, special needs trusts, and so on, especially including some divorce presentations that we've done together as well.
I want people to feel empowered. I think so often as parents, with kids with disabilities, we don't feel empowered. We feel discouraged or defeated. Like, you get that letter in the mail from Health and Human Services, the kid's Medicaid was erroneously denied or canceled, or you've lost Social Security benefits. I mean, it's one thing after another, and it just feels so frustrating and maddening, and getting through to some of these agencies is difficult sometimes. So there is a lot of help out there. There are a lot of tools and resources. So before you feel defeated, just reach out, because there's just definitely a lot of help out there for all of you.
Oh, great, wonderful. And so, do you help people on a short-term basis or long-term or whatever the family
Yeah,
needs?
yes. We have different programs. Some people come to us and they want to do full planning. Some people need to just do Social Security planning. Some people want to do the future care cost estimate, and some people want to engage us on an hourly basis. So we have various doors that families can walk through, depending on the planning that they've done so far. A lot of the families that come to us, they already have a financial advisor. They've done some planning. Maybe their financial advisor doesn't have any background in special needs. We do feel that it is important to work with a specialist when it comes to planning. So sometimes people hire us because they want, a second opinion. Some people got started, but they never finished, and they want us to pick up where they left off. And some people would come to us and say, I'm embarrassed on what I haven't done. And they just need to get started. And I always say, don't look back. It's not about what you haven't done. It's about looking forward. It's about taking the next step and moving yourself forward. And every step that you take, is moving yourself forward. So we really truly just meet people where they are in the planning process and help take it to the next level.
No, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. And definitely, if you're listening, we definitely reach out to Allison and her team and Consolidated Planning Group. They're great people and so knowledgeable and have a heart for this work. So please reach out if we can be of service.
Thanks so much, Marianne. It's certainly a pleasure being here with you today.